Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. Hello! Welcome to Hyphenate Halftime. Thanks. That was my Mrs. Doubtfire.
No, I was going to say that was one of the better. Welcome, Mrs. Doubtfire.
This is a drive-by fruiting. This is Hyphenate Halftime. I'm Randy Randall. This is my co-host, Mr. Aaron Farley. How you doing this morning, Aaron Farley?
I'm doing well. I woke up at 4 a.m.
Oh, that's too early.
For no reason.
Oh, that's the worst.
Or maybe it was even 3:30. And I was just sitting there going, what is my body doing? What does my body think I'm going to be? Like, I feel like your body's going against you for no reason. Yeah. And I can't figure it out.
Go fuck yourself. I think it's more like your head is telling your body, because your body's going to feel it later. You're going to feel tired as fuck later.
Yeah, but your head's not loving it either. I don't know what the reason is. Like, you sit there and you go, you're up at 3:30 and you're going, what's the reason for this? I don't know. Like, I'm tired. My body's exhausted. My head is tired. My thoughts, I'm not even having like real thoughts right now. I'm like still kind of in dreamland.
Oh my God.
What in nature is making me awake right now? There's no good. There's no good in this situation at all.
Oh, I hate that. It's funny. Yeah. Shan had the same thing last night. She said, she was up, just for like 2 hours, just for nothing. She woke up and she's like, oh, maybe it's 5 a.m. and it was an 11:30. It was like it wasn't even midnight yet. It was still early in the night.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's that extra sun power or whatever we've been getting this last. That's supposed to be knocking all the satellites and everything out of whack. Even though I don't think that happened. I just know everybody was seeing like the northern lights really low.
Yeah, I don't know. Conspiracy hat. It's definitely.
Yeah, so that's what it is. The sun,
wizards.
The sun was giving out wizard energy last night, and it woke me up at 3:30, and so I was up from 3:30 to 5.
What do you do with this? Because I think this is interesting. Because I've had these moments too. I think everybody has these moments where you're just like, well, fuck, I'm asleep. Like, do you go for food? Do you watch a show? Do you check your email? Go for a walk? Like, what's your way of dealing with it?
Well, I got up and I was kind of like, sorry, dinging. Mm-hmm. I was like I'm kind of halfway through an art project. So I got up and figured that would kind of put me to sleep, but I ended up just working on that for like an hour. And then I was going to read, because reading will always put me to sleep.
Oh yeah.
But then I felt like, well, I'm awake enough that I could probably get something done. I'm not so dangerous. Tired. So then I was feeling guilty about wanting to go to sleep when I could have like an hour of some kind of productive time doing something, which is a whole problem in itself. Like feeling like you should use your productive hour from 4 to 5 a.m. instead of sleeping that's a whole mental gymnastics.
Yeah, well, that might be part of it too. Just that feeling of having to be productive. Like I fall into that. Or I have in the past. I still do every once in a while now too. Just that feeling of like everything's got to count for something.
Yeah, totally.
And I really try to do my best work to just be like, no, I'm just supposed to be here. Laying on the couch is fine. Yeah, I don't have to be doing anything. Okay. Yeah, I don't have to justify it. But it's that freelancer brain of like, oh shit, if I'm not making money or looking like I'm making money or pretending like I'm making money.
Yeah, it doesn't. Or doing something that could potentially result in something else later on in life or something. I mean, I look at that all the time and I'm like, God, I need to do this. I need to do that. And then I look over at the happiest person in our house, which is our dog.
The dog, yeah.
And our cat.
Just licking his nuts.
And they just sleep all day.
Nope. Yeah.
They sleep all day. They get up every once in a while.
They shit.
They want you to pet them. and then they go bark at some stuff that's on the other side of the fence for a while and get their energy out, go on a walk, sniff a bunch of stuff, and come back and go to sleep.
Yeah.
I feel like most animals are like that, right? Like most animals probably sleep or rest more than they're awake, right? Like we're probably the only animals that are awake more than we're sleeping.
Well, that's a good question. I wonder how that works. I'm definitely not qualified to know any information. I could guess. I'll just guess and say, yeah, sure, it sounds right.
I thought that was one of your hyphenates.
Yeah.
And I'm a wildlife biologist by trade.
In between tours and shots of Jägermeister in my 20s, I did get a master's degree at night school, DeVry Technology, about the sleeping habits of northern hemisphere reticular lemurs.
Yeah. The sleeping habitat or the sleeping habits of all creatures.
Yes.
That's what I have a master's in.
Yeah. But I mean, I would also say that, the majority of domesticated animals also die under 5 years. So what the fuck? They they're just living all their best life. Right. I mean, it's like, significantly smaller amount of time on the earth, just like, fuck it. I'm going to enjoy. I'm not going to work for shit. I'm not going to suffer. Fuck that.
Yeah. Do you feel like their life to them feels much slower?
Ooh, I've thought about this, right? It's like ratio. Life. It's like a ratioed kind of thing. Of like, I don't.
Like a sloth is just watching everything go by so fast. Just what the hell is going on?
I love that idea. Or even though you say, it's like a dog's life is 7, 1 human year is 7 years for the dog, which I don't think is accurate, but could be. I don't know. But
it's close-ish.
I don't know. Yeah. Does it all just go by so fast? Like the dogs just think we're like hummingbirds. Like how do they move? How do they move across the room? But they move fast though too, because I don't think the scale doesn't work that way. I think if it was a smaller kind of thing, like a gnat or something, even like on a molecular level or something, you know what I mean? Then or large, or I guess that's the other way you think about it, right? Like a mountain. Like if mountains are alive, but they just move really slow, and so we don't perceive them as really moving at all.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like the 1,000-year-old trees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess
we're just little hummingbirds buzzing around them.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I have no idea how it works. I wish I did.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I know. I like all the new research about the like mushrooms or not mushrooms, but like fungus and mycelium or whatever.
It's all one big hive mind, they're all connected.
Yes, totally. I love that. And maybe that's what was waking me up.
Ooh, the mushrooms are talking to you?
It's definitely not mushrooms, but maybe there's the power from underground is going crazy in the spring, and it is trying to attach to my brain to tell me to get up and love the night. Love the night.
This sounds like lyrics to like a Thin Lizzy song or some kind of, or like Foreigner or something.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on my Foreigner tribute bands.
I'm getting the wrong bands. Who wrote "Because the Night"? Was that a Bruce Springsteen song that Patti Smith did?
The night, yes,
belongs to lovers because. Yeah, there we go.
Did you listen to a lot of Bruce Springsteen? Are you a Bruce Springsteen fan?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I've been waiting to talk to you. Have you heard the good word of Bruce Springsteen? I've been waiting to talk to you about this. So, me growing up in Southern California, I was born in 1981, right? Product of early MTV. I had older siblings, so MTV was on, all that stuff. At one point, I want to say 1988, maybe 7 years old, sounds about right. My parents, just my mom and dad, my older brothers had already graduated high school and were starting to live their lives, but I was still young, my third grade or something, second grade. My parents took a trip through Baja, California. My dad was a surfer, and we took a trip through the Baja Peninsula, and my parents were great. I think my dad got a bunch of books on tape, precursor to podcast and Audible. Like he went to the library and checked them all out. And eventually, as I became a teenager, he would do this same thing, and he would have me like bounce record them onto tapes so he could like bootleg them and listen to them later. But at this point, maybe there was 1 or 2 books on tape, like a Heinlein. He was a sci-fi book guy, and then the other thing we had was a tape with Paul Simon's Graceland on one side, and Bruce Springsteen.
That's all we listen to on road trips.
Yeah, Graceland on one side, and was
Born to Run.
No, not Born in the USA. What is that? What's that record? Is it just called Born in the USA? The one with his butt and a hat.
Maybe.
What's that record? It's like the biggest record.
Look it up. Keep going with your story.
Anyway, so we had those two. We had the Bruce Springsteen on one side and Paul Simon. And then it was my job to hold the boombox because the car didn't have a tape player and the truck didn't have a tape player. So I held the boombox in my lap and I had to flip the tape every time. So for about, I don't know what it was, 10 days, 14 days, we just listened in between weird sci-fi spoken word things. We would just listen to Graceland and Bruce Springsteen. On repeat. Amazing. So I know every single song. I guess I don't know the name of the record anymore. I was kind of Born in the USA.
I think you're right. I'm trying to look it up. It's Dancing in the Dark.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Born in the USA.
Born in the USA. Yep, there we go.
Totally.
So yeah, so I have that record tattooed on my brain. Now, fast forward, become a teenager, punk stuff, whatever, you know what I mean? I don't really clock Bruce Springsteen much in my life post Nirvana, that world. And then I meet my now wife, and her first concert was Bruce Springsteen, and her dad loved Bruce Springsteen, her mom loved Bruce Springsteen, and she went and saw him on all these things. And so for our wedding party, Bruce was in town, and this was 2012, and he played he played it down in Anaheim at the Anaheim Duck, whatever Honda Arena thing is. And so I rented a big Econoline van, and we took all the moms and dads, both sides of the family, the friends. I don't know, I think we bought like 20 tickets and just brought everybody, and we all went to the Bruce Springsteen concert. That was the first time I ever saw him play live. It was amazing. Yeah. It was like 3.5 hours of just him, no openers. And it's all the stories, all the things. And so in the meantime, it's the kind of thing that, I think I can say this openly because I know Shannon doesn't listen to this podcast. My wife, I didn't like the Grateful Dead, and I didn't really think about Bruce Springsteen much. I didn't actively not like him, but the Grateful Dead I went out of my way to not like as a punk, as a younger person. But those are two of her favorite bands. And so I've had to through marriage, make way, find places in my heart to appreciate Jerry Garcia and Bruce Springsteen more than I probably would on my own, if left to my own devices. So that's my Bruce Springsteen story.
Well, that's so funny because I just knew his, Bruce Springsteen, all the hits.
Yeah.
Being a child of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And
the greatest hits of the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah, all of them are Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
He had a hit in every era.
I think so.
He's kind of like the queen of America.
Oh, right. Yeah, but instead of having four songwriters, it was just him.
It was just him, but he also changed. He kept up with the times enough to keep making hits, and he took that 70s sound, but was able to become a massive star in the 80s, kind of like ZZ Top, I guess, right? It was started as this kind of country, folk. I mean, those first Bruce Springsteen records, are they folk records? They're kind of folk records, right? kind of rock,
kind of throwback to 50s. I think he had a 50s singer-songwriter kind of thing. Yeah.
And for some reason,
also had hits with his covers, right? The songs he wrote or that other people would cover of his.
Yeah, right.
What is
people were begging
Manfred Mann, Blinded by the Light.
Yeah.
Lit up like a deuce. That was,
And I didn't know he wrote that, actually.
He wrote that one. Oh, yeah.
And he wrote, was it Stevie Nicks who was always begging him, please write a song for me?
Well, I think that was the guy, Jimmy Iovine. They talk about it in the Beats headphone documentary.
Maybe that was Tom Petty.
Tom Petty,
begging
right?
Tom Petty to write songs for her.
Again,
but anyway, I guess Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, it's kind of that, I don't know, Americana rock. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But anyway, but then that sound, for some reason, in the 80s, with some
reverse gated reverb on the snare,
and some electronic
Phil Collins
kind of that just worked. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. John Mellencamp.
But then he also was I'm completely blanking on who was the Oh my God, he was super inspired by the punk record that was. Oh man,
I'm curious where you're going with this. The thing I'm looping on in my head is there's a great compilation of people covering that John Cougar Mellencamp song, Jack and Diane. And has the great line, "Sucking on a chili dog." But there's a great clip on Instagram someone sent me that was just "sucking on a chili dog," and then someone else doing all these karaoke versions. "Sucking on a chili dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on a chili dog." You've seen this? This is beautiful.
Oh
right?
Yeah, I might have sent that to you.
Maybe you sent it to me. Okay, "Sucking on a chili dog." No.
Sucking on a chili dog.
So someone was inspired by a punk record in the 80s?
No. Bruce Springsteen was.
Bruce Springsteen was inspired by a punk record. Okay.
Oh my God.
I like this.
Not The Fall. Who was?
That'd be great. I'd love to hear that.
No. It was
USA.
Oh my God! You keep talking. I'm gonna look for it.
I wanted. What fall song would Bruce Springsteen cover? If you know this, please. This is why I want the.
I would say like the way that I've realized the way that my memory works is that I attach multiple things together. For whatever reason, maybe like when I heard of them or something like
synaptic
that.
net.
So I'll be like, it's like that band
firing.
such and such. And then I'll tell the person what band it actually is, and they'll go, those two things don't relate. Those are unrelated. I'm like, maybe their name sounds familiar. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But their song was playing in the record store when I looked at the cover of The Fall, and Bruce Springsteen was playing over the PA. So now I've connected Bruce Springsteen with Marquis Smith.
Yeah, it's also like bands I've heard but I never listened to, but people talk about them all the time. So then in my head, they're in the same category of like, I know that was probably around that same time, and then I'm gonna try to remember them by associating them with this other band. Obviously, that's not working because I can't. I'm going to tell you the name of this band, and you're going to be like, "Did you really say The Fall?" And you were thinking of that band?
Okay, but wait. So the idea is that Springsteen was inspired by a punk record.
Album.
Okay, yeah.
He heard an album that was like fully like electronic drums in the late 70s, early 80s.
Kraftwerk, yes.
It was like,
go on.
Not that electronic.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Well,
you're
Phil
not giving
Collins,
me time to search the internet right now.
Phil Collins fully had the reverse gated reverb thing. You know what I mean? Whether it's like in the air tonight, and
yeah, totally.
Anyway, so he was inspired. Do you think it was him personally that wanted that drum sound? I can't imagine. This is.
I'm trying to think of where I even heard this story.
Okay,
it's kind of a famous story.
Well, here you keep looking. I'm gonna tell you while you look for this story.
Okay.
That the Dean and I put a no age record out called "Snares Like a Haircut," and the idea behind that one it's a little bit of a anachronistic sounding sort of thing, enigmatic perhaps, but the idea was we were driving up to San Francisco, just Dean and I, and having talks like this, as one does. And then, we'd just saying dumb things, and then something would come up, and then we'd write it down. I had a little on my notepad on my phone. I write down dumb things. But the idea that a snare sound of a song will give away the era of when the song was made. So, even though like Bruce Springsteen more or less sounds like a 50s band or maybe a 70s band, but then you put that big reverse gated reverb snare on there and you're instantly like, oh, that's made in the 80s. Much in the same way that like if you look at pictures of people in the 80s, you could be like, oh, that could be the 70s, that could be the 90s, depending on the fashion of it. But the hair is going to give it away. Depending on what that mullet, that particular, is it a feathered mullet? Is it a spiky mullet? Is it, just a buzzed head with like flat top? Because you could see people.
Loop-de-doop do you have in
exactly,
it? Exactly, or whatever.
Yeah, they didn't have that kind of gel in the 50s, and so the hair did not look like that in the 50s. In the same sort of way, the snare and the sound, those like soul records, Motown had a particular kind of snare sound, and and those. So fashions will change, but haircuts and snares will always be an indicator of what era you're in, whether it's if you're looking at a photo or listening to a song. So if you're really looking to be like time accurate and specific, you got to get the haircuts right. Have you heard this other thing too of like people in period movies where they'll say like, oh, like you can tell that person's seen a cell phone, like, or you could like if somebody really looks like they're period specific, and like Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln, he looks like somebody who's never seen a cell phone. This is a way of judging actors in period films. Yeah. So
it's how do you tell if someone looks like they've seen a cell phone? They just have that look to them.
Like, hey, so I gotta. I think it's more like they're in a hurry or something. I think the idea of maybe you're waiting to what's going on, guys? How's it going? We're hanging out here at the soda shop.
Or every once in a while, when they get bored,
look down. They're tapping their pants, tapping the pockets.
I was gonna say they look bored. Every time they look bored, they take a look at their hand real quick.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's it.
They're looking around. That's amazing. Okay, so I found the band.
Okay, so for drum roll, please. Who was the band that Bruce Springsteen was inspired to, where he got his 80s drum sound from? Ready?
In the case of the 1982 album Nebraska, Springsteen was heavily influenced by the minimalist synth punk band
Suicide. I've heard this. Yeah. Sorry, I did not think about that. But it's so weird because that record does not sound like a Suicide record. However, that is very like New York of the time, very stripped down and almost like savage and attacking. Wow, so Nebraska inspired by Suicide. Yeah, it's very surprising.
Surprised me because I just knew nothing about anything other than the radio songs.
Right.
And so then when Nebraska, I listened to that's
the Pinkerton of Springsteen.
Right. And then and his Nebraska, and then I went to listen to Nebraska and was like, oh, wow. Okay. This is like a super minimal, creepy record.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about it because you just think of Springsteen. I mean, probably the first time I really heard Springsteen was Born in the USA, I'm sure, as a kid.
Yeah, of course.
Or maybe some of the older songs on the radio, but and like being like knowing who Bruce Springsteen was definitely in the mid to late 80s. But
yeah. It's interesting. I went and listened to his book on tape on a long drive by myself because now I'm a child of books on tape and Bruce Springsteen. So I could put this. I actually was driving to Spokane. I was driving Shannon's mom's moving truck when she moved from Pasadena to Spokane. It was it was the day after Christmas. I don't know, whatever, 7 years ago. And so I had the Bruce Springsteen Audible book on my phone, and it's incredible. It's incredible because again, now I'm curious. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm a Springsteen fan now. So it's incredible. There's so many revelations about his life. I mean, he feels at this age, I think he's probably in his 70s, somebody who went through a lot of therapy somewhere in those, 50s and 60s and really figured out the language and the, tools you need to sort of put your brain together or live comfortably in his wealth and success. I imagine it probably didn't fit him very well for a long time. But one of the things he was saying was that Born to Run, the 70s hits, like the end of the 70s was huge. It was as big as he could get. Like he didn't have really design on what could be bigger than that. And so he had no choice but to come down. Like it's one of those things of the success of an artist's career. I think last week we talked about, maybe personal arcs or things that happen in people's careers. But for the thing is on scale, much like we're talking about like, dogs to human years, no matter, if you're a small punk band or the biggest pop band in the world, there's a relative scale to this. There's an economy of scale being that like at some point you hit a plateau. You know what I mean? As big as your career is going to be, that's as big as it's going to go. And so he's, I think, had that with Born to Run, and then going into, and I think he did, anyway, he did Nebraska as almost like a 4-track demo thing. And he'd actually written all of Born in the USA in those same sessions. There's like versions you can listen online of the song Born in the USA played in the style of Nebraska, because that's when he wrote it. And so he sort of like took two parts of himself as a sensitive kind of poetic, probably raw nerve sort of, artist and giant pop star phenomenon, and almost cut him in half. It's like, okay, this is the sensitive record and it has to come out. It has to be done on a 4-track at home this way. It has to sound like it does that anyway. And then here's the biggest pop record I could ever think to make. And it happened timing wise. It was the birth of MTV. It was the birth, everyone was looking for somebody to do exactly what he was doing. And he essentially defined the sound of, the 80s with that record.
Yeah. Well,
in so many ways.
Yeah, because so you have The River.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Born to Run is 75, then The Darkness on the Edge of Town, 78. Yep. The
Still
River,
hits.
80. Yeah. Nebraska, 82, and then Born in the USA, 84.
And then goes on one of the biggest world tours he's ever been in, playing stadiums, going from big theaters to the now stadiums, and then marries an actress, buys a house in Malibu, and quickly, commits himself into a mental institution for being suicidal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
That's
really that, yeah. But his whole thing, is really interesting. Growing up in, New Jersey, and obviously New Jersey, right? But Italian and Irish parents. The dad was just at the bar. The mom would send him in to get the dad out of the bar, and the factory worker. So the first shocking thing, and I think this is news if anybody's a fan of Springsteen knows this, but in the book, he really talks about his dad and that generation working in the factory, down out, nothing there. And then I was understanding as I was reading, I was like, oh, wait, the character that Bruce Springsteen sings about, he sings about from a first person point of view, this like small town, can't get out, stuck in this town, this town rip the bones from your back. We got to get out. We've got to do something, break loose. It's his dad and his dad's generation. It's like he puts on a character, and Bruce Springsteen himself is a hippie poet, and he's a sensitive young man who dodged the draft and went into his bandmates from his high school band went to Vietnam and died, and he was able to get out of it and felt the guilt for all these years, and went to San Francisco and put flowers in his hair and had a acoustic guitar. I was trying to figure out what that life was, this kind of inspired by Dylan and all these other kinds of things of the time of the 60s. And then put together this character of this working class hero and sang about him, kind of in tribute to his dad and sang those stories as a poet, as a storyteller. But it was not his experience. I think he always felt that fear and that shame of kind of being a fraud in some ways.
Yeah, totally. Well, and it's interesting that you say that, like, your first thing is that it's like 50s music, because that would be his dad's generation.
Exactly.
Of music as well.
Yeah. But it kind of hit on that time where, the 90s to the 2000s and these kind, it's like the reflection of that sort of stuff as it all comes back around, by the time he's in the 80s, that's now just 30 years prior to the 50s sort of stuff that he's pulling out.
Yeah.
Sort of comes back in style again, post Happy Days, whatever, 70s stuff.
Yeah. Just like singing songs about the 90s now. The 80s to the 50s is
oh
what
my God.
we are to the 90s.
Are there kids now writing songs about the 90s?
I mean, all the bands sound like the 90s.
They sound, yeah.
It's like, there's like some, again, Lila was playing some band and I was like, oh, when's this from? It sounds like, it actually sounded a lot like Nirvana.
I've heard of them.
But, they were a little band outside of Olympia somewhere. No, but this, I don't remember what the band was called. She's like, no, this record's now. This just came out. I was like, oh, they got it down.
Yeah, but I
remember like in the 90s, the like everyone sounded like Black Sabbath. Like all those bands were like that, like van rock, desert rock.
Oh right, yeah.
Like all of that stuff was referencing
Queens of the Stone Age and stuff.
The Stooges and Sabbath and Zeppelin and all of that stuff, and everyone was trying, like, I want to get that Geezer Butler sound or whatever. I want to get that, I just wanted to like doom and gloom, and then everyone would be like, why don't you just listen to Black Sabbath?
It's true.
Because man, this is new, man. These guys drive a van. They got a crazy painted van. They just came in from the desert. Man.
I want to hear songs about the 90s though. Like, we saw Bill Clinton on Arsenio blowing the sax. Subway was a new thing. We're going to go get our foot long. It's really exciting. Doctors say it's healthy. We don't know that Jared was a pedophile yet.
Yeah.
I don't know what other 90s things you could write songs about.
That's it. That's all that happened in the 90s. That's all I remember.
Hypercolor t-shirts that were supposed to react to your body heat, but actually because your own body that you're wearing it on is hot as a body, it would just change colors automatically and you'd have pit stains.
Yeah,
your armpits were the hottest part of your body. Stains. Yeah. maybe heat activated clothes weren't the coolest thing around.
Oh my God. I love that. The person who invented that was like, you guys, this is going to change everything. And it was, I remember thinking like, wow, hypercolor, this is crazy. And then the first people that got them, they're like, oh my God,
look,
you could just
it's
tell
disgusting.
Yeah. It's just everywhere.
Why is your belly button so hot? Why does that look so gross? Why is there heat coming out of those areas? Ugh.
Yeah, that really was only one season, huh?
Well, and then everybody would want to come up and touch you. So then everyone's just like grabbing your chest and grabbing your gut. And if you're a fat fourth grader like I was in the early 90s or whatever it is, it felt very uncomfortable. Oh, cool. You have one of those shirts here. And then everyone's just touching you. I'm like, oh, please don't touch me. I feel disgusting. I'm so hot and sweaty right now in this big, weird chemical shirt. And now I have everybody putting their handprints all over my weird body.
I wonder if there's still original hypercolor shirts out there and if they still work.
Or if they've become sentient and are now running the AI revolution. We come to find out the big villain in this whole thing is like the discarded hypercolor shirts have banded together from the dumps. Like, you tried to kill us, but you gave us life. Now
that's what's created the mycelium strain underneath the ground. It's actually just growing from hypercolor shirts.
The plan is coming to fruition.
Let's wake everybody up at 3:30 in the morning.
That's it. That was your hypercolor shirt from 40 years ago coming back. It's because it's chemicals soaked into your body. The chemicals that you wore on your shirt are now part of you, and it's part of your mycelium.
And they're communicating with the trees underneath the ground. It was actually
oh my God!
It was actually a psychedelic chemical that is created to attach us to the earth.
I can't wait for the new trend of like, instead of a face mask, like the anti-face mask, like the face funnel, where everyone just gets to like breathe into your mouth. Like it's a new trend that kids get to do. Like, hey, spit in my face funnel. Cool. Like this can't be some kind of psyop program to spread diseases faster around the globe. We saw how quickly people adopted the prevention, but what if they adopted the spreading of it?
Yeah, we're actually supposed to get each other sick constantly, all the time.
Well, there is something to that as well, I would imagine. That's how it's normally gone, and that's how we build up immunity, right? Is just constantly just breathing on each other.
That's what we're here for. We're here. I truly believe that we are here for bacteria and viruses to live. That's the only reason. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're so smart is because it allows us to spread bacteria and viruses faster and farther.
It's beneficial to the viruses and the bacteria. Yeah, that's why we.
Airplane is faster than the wind, my friend. We can get everywhere. Wow. We spread our diseases far and wide, consistently, without and the bacteria and viruses are just along for the ride.
This definitely sounds like a lyric to a song that I would listen to.
Yeah. A Springsteen song. This is like Springsteen's
bacteria like us, baby, we were born to spread.
It's like when Springsteen puts out his conspiracy record.
Whoa, that hand sanitizer will try to kill you on your hands. But what they don't know is that we're water soluble now. We're in your saliva. Oh my God, that's so good.
That one's going to be a hit.
I can't wait.
Call Bruce. Someone call Bruce right now.
So
we got an idea.
Bruce on the line. Oh, I love it. I had a thought 5 minutes ago, but before this last run, I don't remember it. But it was a good one. I was ready to go down the whole other hole.
Was it about the band Suicide?
Oh my God, I saw them twice. Once at an ATP thing. It sounded incredible. So loud. So scary looking, and like they look like snowboarders, like 80-year-old snowboarders coming on stage.
Oh, really?
They had like big beanies, like on the top of the head, like the condom tip, beanie style, and then giant goggles and stuff, and just like stabbing the Moog thing, like Sherry. And the other guy just has the microphone, kind of almost like he's like walking with a walker had like an invisible walker in front of him, and just sang into his microphone. It's frightening.
I mean, they've got to be older.
Well, one's dead.
They're older than. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. R.I.P.
There you go. R.I.P.
But they were old. Yeah, I think they were even older in that scene. I don't think they were like they were kind of the weird sort of like
they've already been around for
art damaged sort of thing. Yeah, in the 70s and 80s.
I love it. I need to learn more about that era. Maybe that will be my new.
You should read the Thurston Moore book. Where if you want to learn about like New York Underground in the late 70s, early 80s. That's primarily what it's about. I don't think he talks much about his life. I think he's mostly
does he talk about Springsteen?
Music journalism. I don't know. That's a good question. What is Sonic Youth's interpretation of a Sonic or a Bruce Springsteen song? That'd be good.
Well, I feel like I need to find this story now, because I do feel like there was a story where like Springsteen had asked maybe that if he could cover a Suicide song, or there was something, or like maybe even cover the record, something weird.
Have them guest on it? No. It'd be amazing. Oh, so fuck off.
There was some
mainstream.
Like, fuck you or something. Yeah. I don't know. I could be making that up. I do remember.
I could see that.
That would be, that's on brand, seems.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brain fart. Long COVID. Still got the long COVID. Right. I don't know. What was I going to? There was
4 years ago.
Yeah. Still happening.
I've had brain fog since 2020.
I've had brain fog since 2013.
I had pre-long COVID.
The time travel COVIDs.
Yeah.
I forget. The Bruce Springsteen. Oh. Well, Sonic, the interesting, the other side of that too, then, is Neil Young in terms of like 70s songwriting heroes that would then become celebrated in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like he was sort of the cooler version of that. Like he had a whole thing, he had his own electronic record, Trans, and everything, he was doing. He had this, do you know that record? Transform, man. He got a vocoder, and he had a son with autism in the 80s. And there were the cover story of the record is this was a way he was trying to experiment with ways of communicating with his severely autistic son. However, it also just sounds a lot like, Neil Young being really stoned and listening to Kraftwerk and making a record. So I don't, I think he might have had a good cover story for it.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. That's his 80s record, but then was kind of then celebrated as like the raging sort of garage band of like the Pearl Jam and, these kinds of things, Sonic Youth and stuff opening for them.
He has that. There's that video of him playing with Devo.
Oh, right. Yeah. Human Highway was a film that Neil Young made films in the 80s too. Yeah.
And I remember it because I recently heard an interview with Mark Mothersbaugh, and he brought that up, and I don't think I had ever seen it, or maybe I had, I don't know. And then I went back and watched it and went, oh, what a strange, like this is just so many strange moments meeting at the same time. And it makes no sense, but then when it's explained, even by when Mark Mothersbaugh was talking about it, he was like, he's a fan, and he asked us, and we talked, and we ended up, I don't even remember what the story was, but then watching it, and we're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This is crazy. This is weird.
Cocaine was a hell of a drug.
Yeah, I guess so. Probably mostly that. But he also is like, Neil Young is like a tech guy. Remember when he tried to start that tech company with the
Ponyo?
Super high?
Which one? What Ponyo? That was his triangle, his Toblerone, like no loss.
Right.
Like music player.
Yeah. Like the TIFF of songs. Like it was trying to do the lossless audio, and
turns out people don't give a shit.
Neil Young, everyone's like, I just want things easy.
We like when our music sounds like shit. Easy. We actually don't care about quality.
I don't like that. Nope, I lost you. Oh, there you go. You're back.
You froze.
Well, speaking of technology.
Yeah, there we go. The algorithm knew we were talking shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, fuck
Neil
you.
Young's like, shut him off.
Turn it down.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about Ponyo.
They're putting them on Spotify anyway. Go fuck themselves. So Nate Russell was a great opportunity 38 minutes into the show to talk about last week's interview with Nathaniel Russell. He is awesome. We get into a little bit of technology, print making. Yeah. Were you familiar with his art prior to this?
Well, the funny thing was that I was listening to because you just sent me the MP3 and I was listening to it, and I was like, Nathaniel Russell, it sounds very familiar, but you guys were mostly talking about music.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, at the beginning of it. And so I was like, I don't think I've heard him play. And then I looked up the album, which
so
is great.
good, right?
Yeah, so cool and like honest and kind of raw, but then like these like big kind of instrumentation comes in. Yeah, it was really cool. And so I was listening to that, and then you guys were talking about the art, and I looked him up, and I was like, oh my God, I know his work. Of course. I've seen this work forever. I know so many of these pieces, and I don't know why I didn't like attach the name to the artwork. But yeah, so then I just went through his website again and was like, oh yeah, I love this stuff. I love his work.
So good, right? Yeah, just the simplified.
Totally. And the printmaking and the woodcuts, and especially right now, I'm trying to like learn how to do woodcuts and
how's that going?
Stamp carving and stuff. Yeah, it's cool, but it's weird. It's hard to make it look good. It's easy to carve. It's hard to carve well. Or make something that's interesting that doesn't look like a cartoon or a kid's toy or something. It's like
it's big lines.
Stuff, and his stuff is very simple, but I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's very simple and graphic, but it's very kind of, I don't know, feels complex. It's like playful, but it's so perfect. It's so well done, and the colors are beautiful. And
I love how he said it too, just like saying the most with the least amount of lines. You know, it's a beautiful kind of expression of minimalism, or this sort of like how to do more with less kind of thing.
Right.
And I could totally appreciate that, even from songwriting or recording or these kinds of things, like just the simplicity in something. Sometimes it's hard to show so much restraint and still make it come through.
Right. And I think that printmaking, or even the way that he uses printmaking, works so well with that too, because you can have these really simple shapes, but because if you're printing with wood, or you're printing with a stamp, or you're printing with any of this, you get this like texture to it that isn't just like paintbrushes. There's a little bit of randomness to it, depending on how much ink you put on the wood or the plate or whatever, and that can add so much kind of texture and depth and stuff. And I think his work is it's also very timeless. It doesn't seem like it was made, like it could have been made 30 years ago, and it could have been made yesterday, and you can't really tell.
There's no snares or haircuts involved.
Yes. Maybe in a couple of them. I'm looking for haircuts. I'm looking for some haircuts.
Yeah, identify the haircut in your work.
Like this, the space and everything that he uses is really nice, in the colors.
Yeah. But that's interesting too. Just I think as you know, as people that make things, like how to identify signifiers of a time. Like if you're trying to make something timeless, like what is it, or you know what I mean, or just being able to read your own work in that kind of way. I think that's just the idea of having like a editorial eye to your work. I think is you can tell with people that have been able to perfect or even just have a longevity in a career of something simple. It's like, because they've refined it. This isn't it takes so much work to make something look so easy. I think that's part of that sort of that simplicity, like the stroke or the hand, like, this thing kind of loops around in such a fun way. But even that isn't something that just comes natural or isn't repeatable for 20 years.
Right.
Like eventually you'll develop a technique that could hinder that, or if you're not careful to keep first idea, best idea sort of art, that sort of stuff. It's like, but you really have to work at that, because you can muddy that. I don't know, even just from songwriting, I mean, that I have to I'll go back and learn a song that I wrote, now going on 20 years ago. And I'm overcomplicating it. And I'm like, wait, how did I play this? Like, I did not know these hammer-ons. I didn't know these extended chords. I didn't know any of these things. I had one finger and I just put it there. And the rest of the strings are probably just open in a way. And this is one finger riff. Like, that's what I was doing. That's right.
Yeah.
And then I try to think about that now. I'm like, well, should I write a song like that? Trying to use that same technique, is that something that's interesting? Like tie one arm behind your back, and will you make something that's as interesting as something you made in your 20s or something? Like, no. I don't think it would just look awkward and weird. It would look like some, I don't know. I don't
trying
think
to replay the past or something.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I think you guys,
I like that Bruce Springsteen record.
Yeah. You guys talk about that too, that like, it's like, everybody can have the pedal, but you eventually can learn how to use that pedal. like that pedal becomes part of your playing style, and it becomes this thing that like, oh, now I can just jump on the guitar and with my setup and just go, because I've had that 20 years to get all of the other stuff out of the way, to where I know what works and I know kind of how to use all the technology and my fingers and the guitar and all of that stuff comes together. And I definitely think that is with a lot of artists. You see when they perfect a style, or at least get into a style of like, oh, this works, this is now how I communicate, and then the ideas come into that siphon. The ideas come in, and then you siphon them out through your style, and so then they all kind of look the same but different. And I think his stuff too, it's like that there's like a kind of funny, like a, everything is there, not everything, but there's things that are a bit that are funny or kind of cheeky,
you know, whatever. Just a little funny.
But I think that's really difficult to do, because it's like trying to make a funny song. You're like, okay,
oh yeah,
are we going Weird Al funny, or are we going like, oh, this is just kind of like a goof, like Pavement funny?
Yeah.
Or are we going like it's really, really hard.
Funny to how? Do I amuse you like a clown? Yeah. Am I a jester here for your amusement?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's really difficult to do, to have like a point of view and also like be a little snarky, a little funny, or a little like, you know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
that up on the.
Yeah. So I first met Nate, you know, when I was doing this mural project at our kids' elementary school, and I'm sharing I'm sharing Nate's mural that he did, and it's this blue snake or worm or some kind of line creature with a smiley face, and then has a word bubble with a song coming out of it, and it's and it's beautiful. It's big olive green background with a bright, I don't know, like sky blue sort of snake mess in the middle. And again, it belies a complexity to it, right? That it's like, oh, this is just a kid scribbling something there, but you realize like compositionally it's balanced and weighted, and it makes sense, and it fills the space, and feels overly complicated to end in kind of a playful sort of laugh. There's a narrative to it as well. Like sort of, how do you find yourself in this situation? And one of the best parts about this whole mural project is, you know, we got 15 world-class artists to come and paint murals at our kids' school through work with a friend that I've been volunteering with for years. And the best part was then I had each artist, or the people who could stay, and if they talk to the students, and the ones that couldn't stay, I sort of interviewed them beforehand and asked them like, well, what does this mean? Like, what do you want the children of the school and future children, you know, to think about your piece, or what should they know? And with his, and I'll share this picture on social media. You can find me at Randy S. Randall on Instagram. That's where, if you want to see this picture, it should be up there today or 5 days ago or tomorrow. I'm not sure, one of those days. But anyway, the idea he said is, it's, you know, it's like when you find yourself in a mess, just sing a little tune, you know, wherever you are, it's never a bad time to just sing a song. And it's great. It's such a fun sort of encapsulating feeling. Yep.
And I think that totally works. And then if you don't know that narrative, it also works. It's also kind of funny, and it's like a worm singing a song on a building, and it has a little smile. It's good. It's great for kids, and it's also funny for adults, and it's well done. Yeah, I love it.
It's hard to do. It's hard to think about.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah. Paint a 15 by 40 foot wall with something that will have any impact on a 6-year-old's mind.
Totally. And it's like really hard to not overthink things.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. And I think that is when you find those people that have done this so many times and they hit kind of a stride, and you can just tell. I mean, obviously Jeff McFetrich is the perfect example of this, right? Of like simplifying an idea down to the very core, like 2 or 3 or maybe even the one most important thing, and make like a perfect piece like that communicates an idea from like 3 shapes. And
oh my God,
it's so hard. It's so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can say that I've tried many times and maybe have never been successful at that.
But
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it hits on something too. I think even like writing a song, cause I work in that medium, but it's, that something as simple, like you have to come up with, chords and parts and then lyrics, but to be, if you look at like most lyrics of a song, it's within like, within 2 paragraphs. If we're within, 4 lines is something that's supposed to get stuck in your head, an idea or a thought or a feeling. And you have such a short time that it really takes a craftsman, like, sort of ability of like cutting out all the stuff you don't need, or sculptural sort of hand of like, no, all of that you don't need. Here's the simplest line and the simplest, easiest way to communicate this feeling, this thought, this idea.
Yeah.
And then leave room for interpretation. I think that's what's, like what not to explain, what to explain and what not to, what to say, what not to say, and not to muddy it and have some sort of clean line, that's left.
Well, and sometimes the really crazy, super complicated, overthought pieces are amazing as well.
Sure. Yeah.
There's right.
To be said for that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There you go. There's Jeff's.
Yeah. I'm sharing a photo of Jeff's piece of 3 kids riding the backs of sharks. And one thing Jeff was talking about was he's never seen a shark drawn from the back before. There was his sort of his artist challenge to himself was, you always see the front of sharks. Like sharks are only depicted for their faces and they're only known for the teeth and the thing. He's like, but what does a shark look like in rear view, and what does that mean, and what does that feel like in
which is
idea?
Like such a simple idea, and you go, oh yeah, why would you even think of that? Like where does your head need to be to go like, have I ever seen a shark painted from the back? I don't think so.
And what does that mean? And how does that feel? And does it tell a different story? Like the shark is leaving you alone?
Right.
So it's not dangerous. It's the opposite of that. It's the relief of danger. Like it's something behind you, the viewer are put in the past.
Yeah. It's just a shark kind of swimming around, hanging out.
Yeah.
It's not scary.
Yeah. The narrative structure of like murals or of 2-dimensional 1-panel art pieces, like you really can't have a narrative. You have to define who is the point of view from, what is the character view that you, the viewer is looking at. And then what is your relationship to the colors, pieces, shapes within the frame, right? I mean, it's kind of basic 101 sort of understanding of art. But when you apply that narrative sort of structure to it all, it's really, it can become powerful. Again, you're playing with form and function, like what is this? What is it inherent in looking at something, like the things that people bring to that. And then how do you play with those expectations?
Right.
I think
that's amazing.
I think
Such
about
a cool project.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was blown away. I mean, I feel like I was like 100 Christmas mornings all rolled into one. I was kind of just running
like
around.
A year ago, right?
Yeah.
Last July.
Yeah. We're coming up. Yeah. It's unfortunately they're not doing one this year. There was a whole other kind of thing, but yeah, but I think and this may is even a further talk for later. But one thing I think from a creative perspective is I've been thinking more and more about abstraction, only in the sense of that everything is sort of abstract. That there's this, I think, so much of what I've come into music, especially from this sort of punk, emotional, sort of raw background, is like I'm feeling a thing, I do the thing, it's done. It's very performative. There's not a lot of thought or like really like big. At least from my perspective or from my view of some of the work I've made, it's just, I just did it. I just did the thing. I jumped on stage and went, and it's done. And understand for me as I get older, or just maybe as I contemplate the form more, is really respecting and understanding people who are able to build in like degrees of separation and sort of build in those like degrees of, like constructivism, like, oh, this is an artist's hand at work. Like I want to show you how I'm making the piece, or the fact that I need to have separation from it in order to show the art itself, like like almost like in puppetry, like say, for example, like, you know what I mean? Like there's, you build a puppet and then you make the puppet move, and and the viewer, you see it and you go, okay, I know what this is supposed to be. You automatically have this suspension of disbelief. You don't just see painted wood. Like, why are all these painted wood blocks jiggling in front of me? You go, no, that's a person. That's the king. That's the princess. That's the dragon. That's the car. I know your brain jumps all these abstracted.
And my brain's going to like get rid of all the wires and not think about the person's hands and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And choosing a medium that can artistically make a statement about the message that you're delivering, right? Like, why choose puppetry? Is there something about the story that you're telling that reflects the character's inability to even pilot their own life? That is, though they felt like they're guided through something. And so puppetry then by choosing that medium in particular, you have this extra layer of like metatextual sort of thing of like, oh wow, we're all kind of like puppets. Whoa, this is a really interesting thing. How I didn't know that. I didn't even think about it, because you could just enjoy it as a puppet show kind of idea. Yeah. But if there's some bigger thing of like, that's an unseen hand guiding people through life, and even though their desires are to do one thing, they're pulled violently to something else, which can happen in life, or it is a bigger statement in that. But by choosing a form and having that layer of separation from it, it's not just like, an improvised puppet show, like, I got a puppet, a thing, look at this, we're all done, kind of the way kid play kind of thing, which again could be a choice, to do that as well. But I don't think I've ever really had those conversations or considerations within myself of my own work about like, how many layers removed should I be? And then I think printmaking is that, kind of in the way he's talking about printmaking. It's like, there's the design you put in there, then what the printmaking process will do. It will flatten colors, flatten shapes, simplify shapes. Lines are now like, fine details are obliterated. So we're working with just very large, gloopy, blobby sort of things, or in Lionel cut stuff. You kind of you're choosing a form, and using that what maybe seems a limitation to like enhance the message of what that is. Like, you need this is the proper medium to express this idea through. Right. And I can do that through separating my intentions or understanding the processes that happened, the mechanics of constructing a piece, and building in an artist intention through each of those processes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, that bringing it down to the, like, simplifying it like that a little bit can also make things, I mean, I think this is probably why pop music is more popular than like listening to Yes or Rush or like whatever. It's because people feel like they feel like they belong. And I think that like when you just look at 3 colors and simple shapes and maybe even a little message, but maybe not a message, people feel like they're like, okay, I can understand this without understanding art. Or I don't need to be, I
can understand art like, without feeling like I consciously understand art. It's a subconscious
like I
message.
don't need to feel like, so many people feel left out. I mean, I remember when we had our little gallery space, which we tried to make as inviting and for everybody to come in, and we would still have people just walk by and we'd be outside like, no, go in and take a look. And they're like, oh, it's free? Like, what do you mean it's free? Like, oh, it's, well, a museum, like a museum costs money. I'm like, oh no, this is a gallery. You just come in and look. No, I'm not going to buy anything. No, you don't have to buy anything. It's here it's a display. Like, come just look at the work. And people would come in and so nervous to stand in a room and look at like paintings or photographs because they didn't feel like they belonged there. Because they didn't have they didn't feel like they were educated enough. Like, art is for like, I don't know what this is. And, it would be some weird stuff sometimes, or it would be like crazy prints, or it would be photographs of, whatever.
Yeah. And
people would feel really uncomfortable sitting in a room with only art and then one person like sitting at a computer. And so we really tried, we actually were like, okay, we need to have music on every time we're open. There has to be music, and it has to be loud enough to shut out the uncomfortable silence. Like, it shouldn't be silent, because when people walk into like, if you walked into like a Forever 21 or like whatever the Gap or something like that. If it was silent, you'd like, and you just hear footsteps and you hear people kind of like talking quiet. Everyone would talk quiet, and then you'd hear like, tuk, 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 and you'd hear rap, and But like that's why they have music on, so you can like you're unconscious.
Hey, look at this! Do I look cute in this? You look great. That's awesome. It's like we're at a club right now. I love this song. Try those. Can I buy this? You got to buy that one. Get 2 of them. I want one.
And it shuts that unconscious uncomfortableness out of your brain. Like it makes your, I don't know if it like makes your brain like, okay, I can think about music for a little bit, the uncomfortable side of me, and then the rest of me can like enjoy whatever's happening.
That is so interesting. Like
it happened. Like we would always have music going on, and we'd always have the door open, and people would come in, and we had, you know, I mean, we were in Highland Park, and it was before, it was like, it's where Kitchen Mouse is now. If you've ever been to Highland Park and gone to Kitchen Mouse, it's one of the kitchen mouses. I think it's what they have, the Kitchen Mouse, the restaurant, and then they have right next door, I think was maybe bakery, or you could walk in and buy things at the counter. That was our spot there. But it was before there was nothing there. So there was that little bakery down the street that had a little bit of
In my mind, it was famously the fake taxidermy shop that was used for some film. I always knew.
Oh, right.
When I first moved to the neighborhood, I was walking down that Figueroa and like, what a cool, weird place this is. And then look at that. There's like a taxidermy shop with all the windows open and just a weird fox in the middle of this. What a strange neighborhood I've just moved to.
Yeah, because they used that for a show, right?
Right, yeah. I guess so. Yeah, and then like, you know, within like 6 to 8 months, then it's like, oh, now that taxidermy shop turned into an art gallery. That's so cool.
and by nothing there, I don't mean that there was nothing there, but there weren't like the shop next to us was the guy who sold used appliances to everybody in Silver Lake, Echo Park, and Highland Park. Mm-hmm. And I forget his name right now. He's probably still in my phone. But so we were right next to that. But then the place next to us was literally like kind of a front.
Chainsaw sharpening.
They sold like kids' shoes. And it was just this weird little shop. But really, I think that there were people living in the back, and they had kind of a little fake shop in the front. And then the 4 spaces up the street were just like boarded up. I don't know what they were, storage. So it was
wasn't there like
the storefronts were not active. They weren't active storefronts.
Wasn't there a typewriter repair store on Figueroa there somewhere?
That was down the street.
That was down the street.
Vacuum
stuff like that. Vacuum repair.
Yeah.
I mean,
even those places, I'm like, is this a real business?
In 2010, if you need to find a place to get your typewriter repaired in a brick and mortar world. Yeah. Exactly.
Totally. And it was the place we were really trying to get someone to open up like a little coffee shop or something next door that we could open up the wall, because we'd have, you know,
sure.
But no one wanted to come in because there wasn't a reason to go to those couple blocks.
The cave was the reason was the thing I knew. It was like the goth Mexican club up the street.
Yeah.
Oh, come here. The Susie and the Banshees fan.
Oh, jeez. Oh, stop. She probably hears the cat outside or something.
She's supposed to talk about Depeche Mode.
Oh, my God. Go. Oh, jeez. Of course.
All right, well, this is good. We've gone over an hour. Yeah, that's all Olive's telling us. You guys, we wrap it
Olive's like, come on, I got to go out for a walk.
Yeah. Life must go on. All right, with that, we will heed Olive's request to wrap up today's Hyphenate to be continued on next week's show. This Thursday, I will have another fantastic guest on the pod. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends. Right. Give us a 5-star rating on all things that you do. Go to distrokid.com, use /VIP/hyphenate for 20% off your next release that you will put up.
I'm going to jump off because my cat is in a fight outside. All right.
Bye.
Bye, Randy.
Bye. Oh, that was a good one. All right. See you next time.